This video is for familiarization only and is designed to assist in pre-emergency planning for incidents involving our nation's railroads. The information presented in this video can assist your agency in developing safe and effective protocols and incident response procedures. This video and the information contained herein is not intended to take the place of actual training, replace basic safety rules, departmental guidelines, or established regional response protocols.
'59 Bangor, I'll be out with a train truck crash at the intersection of Western Ave. Start fire and rescue.
Did you know that there are over 200,000 miles of railroad tracks in the United States that carry both passengers and freight from coast to coast? Statistically, about every 3 hours, a person or motor vehicle is involved in a collision with a train. These incidents may result in a fatality or critical injury, as well as extensive damage to the train, tracks, vehicles, surrounding property, and community. With such a high frequency of occurrence, the possibility of responding to an incident involving a train at some point in your career is highly likely. This video is designed to provide valuable information that may assist you when responding to a railroad emergency. What information is needed to respond to a call? What steps will you take when responding to a railroad emergency? Most railroad incidents are avoidable if motorists and pedestrians heeded warning signs and complied with traffic control devices and laws. Grade crossing collisions involving vehicles may occur because the motorist was impatient, misjudged the train speed and distance, failed to look in both directions when approaching a crossing, or was distracted. The severity of motorist injury in vehicle-train collisions is significant. A motorist is many times more likely to die in a collision involving a train than in a collision involving another vehicle. Locomotive weights range from approximately 150,000 to 450,000 pounds. Freight trains could reach weights in excess of 12 million pounds. The sheer mass of a train makes it impossible to halt its movement quickly. If a train is traveling at 55 miles per hour, it may take a mile or more for the train to come to a complete stop. This is equivalent to the length of 18 football fields. The train crew may not be able to stop the train quickly enough to avoid a collision. Think of this analogy. Imagine what happens to a soda can run over by a car. The weight ratio between a typical 3,000-pound car and a 12-ounce can of soda is 4,000 to 1. By comparison, the weight ratio between a typical 12 million pound freight train and that same 3,000-pound car is also 4,000 to 1. A train hitting a car is comparable to a car running over a can of soda. In addition to motor vehicle collisions, a high number of pedestrians die while trespassing on railroad property. Not only is it illegal to trespass on railroad property, it's dangerous and may be fatal. Trespassers often put their lives at risk, not realizing the dangers railroad property and equipment may pose. Due to their size, weight, and inability to stop quickly, trains always have the right of way, even over emergency vehicles, law enforcement, and pedestrians. Trains can move in either direction on any track at any time. They extend 3 feet or more beyond the steel rails. Today's trains are quieter than ever and may seem farther away and moving slower than they appear. Have you ever watched an airplane land? Did the airplane appear to be suspended in the air or moving at a very slow speed? When in reality the airplane is traveling several hundred miles per hour. This perception is very similar to that of a moving train. By failing to obey laws put in place for public safety, motorists and trespassers increase their chance of being critically injured or killed. These incidents often result in needless death, injury, or property damage, but can also affect communities and train crews. If you are dispatched to the scene of a railroad incident, What is your next course of action? Dealing with a railroad incident requires a different type of response. There are unique factors you need to consider. Railroad incidents will require the coordination between the railroad and your dispatcher. Your access to the scene may be limited or blocked. The collision scene may encompass a large area with the potential for mass casualties, and there is a possibility of a train derailment.
When I receive a call of a railroad emergency, I always think of my basic training. Secure the area, locate injured persons, and preserve the scene. I then start asking myself several questions. Has the railroad been contacted? Can I gain access to the scene? Is the scene secure or safe? Is there a concern for individuals or businesses in the immediate area? How I make contact with the train crew? Does the emergency involve a freight train or a passenger train? Are there hazardous materials involved? Does this involve a trespasser or a motor vehicle? And finally, I ask myself, will I need additional support?
No one is immune from the dangers present at a highway-grade crossing, including you. At the scene, park clear of the tracks. Make sure that all railroads involved have been notified and train traffic has been stopped. Look in both directions before getting close to or stepping across the track. Avoid walking between the rails and do not step or stand on the rail. Safety is paramount. Being aware of the various types of railroad equipment and the possible cargo they may contain could save your life. The cargo may pose a chemical, electrical, environmental, or a fire risk to you and the other emergency responders at the scene. Look for rail car placards to identify what type of hazardous materials these cars may be carrying. The Emergency Response Guidebook, or ERG, contains important information on hazardous materials and the appropriate hazardous material spill response. You should familiarize yourself with the information contained in the ERG to be better prepared on how to respond to emergencies that may involve flammable, toxic, corrosive, and gaseous hazardous materials. Remember, upon arrival at a railroad incident, your safety and safety of others comes first, so be certain that the railroads have been contacted and all train traffic has been stopped before fouling the track. Fouling a track is defined as the placement of an individual or an item of equipment in such proximity to a track that the individual or equipment could be struck by a moving train or on-track equipment. You should consider yourself in the foul anytime you are within 10 feet of the closest rail. You may be the first to arrive at a scene and will need to identify the location of the initial point of the emergency, as well as where the train eventually stopped. You may discover that there is no train or vehicle present, as the result of the incident may be a mile or more down the track from the original point of impact. Remember to provide a good location of the actual incident, especially for any additional support responding to the incident.
When I have to provide the location of the incident or the phone number for the railroad responsible for that area of the track, I look for the blue and white emergency notification sign. This sign should be posted near the crossing and clearly visible. The emergency notification sign includes the railroad's emergency contact number and the United States Department of Transportation, or USDOT, identification number. The corresponding railroad milepost may also be listed, although this is optional. Including both the USDOT number and the railroad milepost will provide the railroad with the exact location of the grade crossing. This is vital when requesting that all train traffic is to be stopped.
You may see older emergency notification signs in many different locations, including the signal bungalow. However, newer signs will be placed at the crossings. You should know where to locate the emergency notification signs in your community. Even though your dispatcher has contacted the railroad to stop train traffic at the scene, including traffic on adjacent tracks, you still need to remain alert and be ready to signal an oncoming train to stop. To do this, place a lighted flare adjacent to the tracks, out from the accident scene about 2 miles in both directions. If a train does come closer, be prepared with another flare or bright object that you can wave back and forth horizontally across your chest at the oncoming train. Stand to the side of the tracks, at least 10 feet away from the closest rail. Remember, always park your vehicle clear of all tracks. Do not foul any track, as it may be active, until you receive confirmation that the railroad traffic has been stopped. Relay the need for additional emergency response teams if necessary. Keep your dispatcher informed so they can frequently update the appropriate railroads. Once the scene is deemed safe, one of your priorities should be to immediately locate the train crew or a representative of the railroad. The train crew has important information that can aid in your response. Remember, trains may take a mile or more to stop, so the train crew may not be at the immediate scene of the impact. On freight and passenger trains, train crews typically include a conductor and engineer. Normally, the engineer will stay in the cab at the locomotive's controls or elsewhere on board the train. The conductor may meet you upon your arrival and provide information about the location and contents of the rail cars in the train. The train crew will likely have a first-hand account of the incident and may be the only witnesses to the event. Because the train is not a motor vehicle, the engineer is not required by law to have a driver license. Many times we forget that the train crew members are also victims of this tragedy. When making contact, know that they may be suffering from injuries as well as the emotional stress of the incident. Imagine if you didn't have the ability to avoid colliding with a motor vehicle or a trespasser. The train crew cannot stop the train quickly, has no option to maneuver around a potential threat, or in some instances may not be aware that an incident has even occurred. Even in situations that do not directly involve a train, but still occur on railroad property, you should always contact the railroad. Be aware that trains may operate at any time in either direction and on any track. The railroads can help protect you and the scene by controlling train traffic and ensuring railroad personnel are notified of your presence. They can also authorize the train crew to move a train if necessary. Let's talk a bit about railroad grade crossings. There are two types of grade crossings, public and private. Private crossings may be marked if required by statute, government regulations, or private contract. Public crossings are required by law to be marked at minimum with a grade crossing sign, commonly referred to as the crossbuck sign. The crossbuck sign is equivalent to a yield sign, requiring all vehicles to yield right of way to the train. Advance warning signs alert motorists of a grade crossing ahead, and all motorists must be prepared to stop if a train is approaching or occupying the crossing. All vehicles, including emergency vehicles responding to a call, must yield to a train. Crossings may also be equipped with active traffic control devices such as flashing lights, gates, and bells, which are activated automatically. Railroad companies are responsible for installing and maintaining these warning systems. Active traffic control device malfunctions occur infrequently and should be reported immediately to the railroad. Use the emergency contact number located on the emergency notification sign to relay the US DOT number. Always take the necessary and appropriate actions when responding to a railroad-related emergency. There are proactive and preventive actions that you can take that can greatly reduce the number of incidents and potentially prevent tragedies. One approach is knowing where your grade crossings are, along with what railroads operate through your area of jurisdiction. Also make note of any additional rail-related facilities such as switching yards and maintenance facilities. Too often, motor vehicle operators are unfamiliar with or do not consider traffic laws pertaining to grade crossings. This lack of consideration or understanding can result in catastrophic incidents that may impact an entire community. Your presence near a railroad grade crossing can positively influence a motorist's driving habits. Position your cruiser in a conspicuous manner near the grade crossing and monitor the crossing for compliance with the law. Motorists will be less likely to violate the law or put themselves and their passengers in harm's way if an officer is present and monitoring driver behavior. Use the opportunity to educate drivers and, if necessary, reinforce your message by issuing citations for infractions. Trespassers on railroad property also present an avoidable danger. Not only is trespassing on railroad property illegal, but trespassers often don't realize they are putting their own lives at risk. Listen to the following 911 call involving a trespasser.
911, what's your emergency?
Columbus, Ohio. Columbus, Ohio.
No, what's your emergency? What's going on?
I got hit by a train.
Okay, where are you at?
I am on the tracks.
Were you in your car?
No, I was walking
Okay, but you don't know where. What street are you closest to?
I had no idea.
Okay. What's your name?
Mark.
And your phone number?
216. Please.
Yeah, we'll get officers in. I mean, I kind of have a spot that your phone pulled up to. We'll try to get an officer and some medics out there as soon as we can.
Oh, please,
Are you
please,
out there with
please,
anybody
please.
else?
I'm losing a lot of blood.
Okay, we'll get somebody out there, okay?
Okay.
Bye.
Hello.
Yeah, this is the Columbus Police Department. Do you see the chopper or anything overhead?
No, I don't see anything.
Okay, honey, where were you walking from?
Oh, please kill me, please.
Okay, well, we can't find you.
Please kill me.
What do you mean, kill you?
I'm trying. Tell him, put it down, put it down.
What?
Tell the chopper, put it down.
I think Chopper, I think caller can see you somewhere if you're overhead. I'm trying to get a good location on him.
Please, just put
Can
me
you
on
wave to
reserve,
him?
please.
Wave to the chopper.
I can't. They're gone. They're gone. They're gone. They're gone.
You don't see the chopper any longer?
No, they left.
Okay, now he's saying that he doesn't see you any longer. I'm trying to find out where he was coming from and going to. Stand by.
Oh, they're coming back. They're coming back.
Wave to him as they come by, if you can.
They're coming towards me. They're coming towards me.
All right, Chopper, I have him on the line now saying that you're coming towards him.
They got a light on me.
Looks like you're right above him, he said.
Stop. Tell them to stop. Tell them to stop. Go down. Straight down. Straight down. Straight down. Straight down.
Okay, 160's coming to you, okay?
Due to the actions of the emergency responders, the victim in this case survived his injuries. Every year, hundreds of people die while trespassing along railroad rights-of-way. Trespasser fatalities are rising and now exceed the number of deaths from train vehicle collisions. Risky behaviors, such as biking or running adjacent to the track, often result in a tragic ending when the person does not hear approaching trains. When there are multiple tracks, sound may be distorted and may obscure other approaching trains. There are those who try to climb through a train or attempt to jump on a train and are knocked off when the train moves abruptly. Besides putting themselves in danger, trespassers may commit malicious acts intended to harm others. Tampering with signals or tracks, breaking locks on track switches, or placing debris on rails has caused disastrous wrecks. Damaging, removing, or stealing railroad signals, signs, or equipment could result in a failure of the train control system, which could result in a head-on collision, a misrouted train, and other catastrophic failures. Even though trespassing may be considered a minor crime elsewhere, railroad trespassing incidents may have devastating lifelong effects not only on the individual and railroad personnel, but the community as well. Most railroads encourage and support law enforcement officers in their effort to apprehend and prosecute trespassers. Railroad authorities can provide invaluable assistance with investigations, prosecutions, trespasser abatement programs, and installing additional signage. Lastly, you and your colleagues should prepare and pre-plan courses of action for railroad emergencies. Does your station have an established protocol? Do you have a standard operating procedure? Do you know how to locate railroad contact information? If you answered no to any of these questions, now is the time to start pre-planning. The Federal Railroad Administration is responsible for ensuring our nation's railroads comply with federal regulations. They can also assist you in your investigations. Visit the FRA website for more details. Other online agency sites, such as the Federal Highway Administration, provide valuable information useful in responding to a railroad emergency. Operation Lifesaver is a national nonprofit organization whose mission is to end collisions, deaths, and injuries at highway rail grade crossings and on rail property. Operation Lifesaver provides training videos, online education resources, as well as public awareness materials. There are an abundance of railroads in each state. If you become familiar with the ones in your district, you can then develop an emergency response plan for incidents in your area of responsibility. Check with your local emergency management agency, dispatch, and firefighter personnel to coordinate response plan efforts. Take note of any grade crossings and places of high train volume. Develop a map of the area you patrol that has the railways marked on it, and more importantly, make a list of all the railroad emergency contact numbers. Use these resources to help you better prepare to respond to a rail-related incident.
This video provides you with the proper tools to respond to a railroad emergency. Please keep the following points in mind. Make sure the railroad is aware of your presence on their property. Expect movement of trains, engines, cars, and other rail equipment at any time, on any track, and from either direction. Know your access routes. How do I get in? Know the precise location of the point of impact in the final resting position. Identify hazards and environmental risks. Make contact with the train crews. The crews will be instrumental in your response efforts. When you have to divert traffic over a railroad crossing, you should notify the railroad. And finally, your agency should have a policy or protocol to handle railroad incidents. If not, now is the time to put one together. Contact your local railroads and begin the conversation. Now is the time to prepare yourself for a call involving the railroad.
Thank you. We're all on the same team.